Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today, I hope I can do this review now. We are reviewing the episode 5 of Dark Winds, called Black Hole Sun, which refers, and we will talk about it later, to a solar eclipse that happens during the episode. And it's a very interesting thing about the Navajo and their beliefs about an eclipse, which I never knew, and I don't remember it ever being in any book. But anyway, let's move on. What do you have to say, Marco?
Guess what, Safi?
Okay, what is it?
Only one episode left of Dark Winds.
Which is a terrible, terrible shame.
And do you know what I'll be able to say next week? Only 0 episodes left. Oh, no. What they'll say is, catch the replay next week. Replaying episodes all the time of Dark Winds. That's what they'll say, like, next week, Dark Winds Marathon. Right? That's what they'll say. Because there won't be any new episodes because it's only
6 episodes, which is a horrible, what you're doing to this show is a horrible injustice to the books. And I'll go on about that later, but it's very D for disappointing. What you've done to this. Now, it started out really, really good.
Season 2. Yeah, you had 1, 2, 3 B+ episodes. Then you have a D+ and a D for me. So I also gave it a D. Because it's like, I could honestly almost give it an F because there's just nothing there. Like, nothing happened this whole episode. All of it was like predictable. There were all these plots that didn't matter at all. The mystery still feels like it's a million years away from being solved. Like, the fact that there's one episode left and the mystery is still like this mysterious, it's like, that's not good storytelling.
But it is told in the book, though. And I suggest, if you really want to get a good feel, and you've never read any of these books, if you want to get a good feel for how good the books are and why the people who've read them really love this book series with these characters, then read the books and read this one. It's the People of Darkness.
Well, how could you say this one? Because this one doesn't even have Joe Sleephorn in it, apparently.
Well, he does come in. He's starting to come into it. But
okay.
In the books, there will be books that will just be, in the beginning anyway, there will be books that are just Jim Chi, or there will be books with just Sleephorn. And you might get a little bit of the other character, but it won't be a constant thing.
What about Fly on the Wall? Who's in that?
Well, that is the first book he wrote, and it is no good.
But who's in that?
None of them. It's not even related to this series at all.
Oh, I thought you said it was.
No, I didn't. You're just saying that. And that this is a very good series. It has a very solid fan base. And because it's very well written, it's interesting. It's fun to read. It's not hard.
And it's a smaller fan base, and it feels like it's a smarter fan base because it seems like a lot of the people in the fan base are not okay with these stupid changes and the way that they've kind of butchered the books. And it was really funny because there was this stupid commercial that went on during the show where it was like, if you're telling stories about a culture, you need to honor that culture and represent them really well. And I was like, well, wait a second, Emanuelita. Why don't you represent the books really well, too?
Well, she's not in charge of that, but it's...
You gotta represent the books as well. Like, I think that representing the books that you're adapting on screen should come priority.
And I don't know why this is so hard, but, well, no, I do. One big reason is you guys don't get enough episodes. I would say to be as best as you can to do it the best that you can. And if you're so limited, 10 would be a good number. Because then you could do at least flesh out the main story.
It would be an okay number. Like, still, there was a certain point in time where 24 was the standard. And then it dropped down to
15, maybe?
And then it dropped down to 16. And then in like 2010 or 2012, it dropped down to like 13. And I thought that like 13 is a scary number, but it is like the sweet spot, in my opinion, for like heavy drama television shows that aren't like, Leave It to Beaver or Andy Griffith. But then they started pushing it, and they said, no, how about just 10 episodes? And at a certain point, I don't know what retard came up with this, but at a certain point, they were like, no, how about 6 episodes? That would be perfect, because then we can just rush through it, and we don't even have to spend any money or anything.
And you're really, like I said, I'll talk about it later, but like this thing about the eclipse, now that wasn't, at least I don't remember, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But that's a huge cultural, they're talking about keeping close to the culture and to novel culture, and to represent it the best they can on TV.
But why can't you represent the books?
It'd be nice. Well, I know that, but I'm saying that they don't even really go into that, and they constantly through at least what would you say, the first 3/4 of the episode, they say, oh my God, don't forget the eclipse. Don't forget the eclipse. You got to stay in for the eclipse.
It was pretty pointless.
And I'm like, what's going on with this eclipse business?
I thought, see, if I was writing it, which I wouldn't want to, because it's already enough of a disaster, and I wouldn't want to have to come in and fix everything. But if I was writing it, I thought like they were going to incorporate the eclipse into the story somehow. Like, I thought maybe the eclipse would help the bad guy escape, and you'd have some really cool sequence with lighting,
and that
where
would
like
be,
it could be dark and pitch black out, and it'd be really cool and creepy, and the bad guy escapes. But oh no, can't do that.
There'd be multiple ways you could have used the eclipse to help the bad guy escape.
And that would
multiple ways.
That would have been really cool and really creative and visual and impactful. But instead, how do we see the bad guy escape? Oh wait, we don't. We see Joe Sleephorn get a call on the phone, and it's like a cliche moment where it's like, oh look, the bad guy escaped, and he has the phone and he's like, oh no, and it's like, wow.
And both Marco and I, we've seen enough Halloween movies. In fact, we've seen every one that's made. What happens when they get Michael Myers and they take him to another jail, or they take him here or there? He escapes. It was just, the guy turned around and looked at Joe Leaphorn as he was escorted out. What happened was Sheriff Sana, it's not Captain Largo, by the way, I looked it up, and he is in this book, Sheriff Sana, sorry. And he and another sheriff's deputy take the bad guy to the FBI. So they have to drive him to another office somewhere on the reservation where the FBI are. Or maybe they take him to Albuquerque. I'm not sure. But anyway, they take him away. And as he left the room, he looked behind to Joe Leaphorn. You're like, oh my God, that's a Michael Myers look. He's going to escape. And so what happens? He does the Michael Myers thing and escapes.
To be fair, I already told you guys he had escaped like 2 episodes ago. So.
Because I don't remember exactly what happens, but he never gets to the FBI, so I just don't remember exactly what happens. But I'm reading the book again because I just couldn't stand it. The way they did this episode, and I'll go through, I outlined what happened.
Don't do that, Safi.
Well, yeah, I'll just...
Well, it's pointless. It's like nothing happened.
Well,
like just a bunch of random shit, like Emanuelita, like fucking comforting a teenager who's been drafted. Like, who cares?
There's
Who
cares? There's two things with her. She got her letters. She got in the border patrol.
What's up with that? Who cares?
He already knew about it, actually, and he told her that he doesn't understand why she'd want to leave, that she loves it here where they are, and that he doesn't think that's a good idea. And then also they have this boy, and he's an older boy, and he's been arrested for like lots of little street crime stuff that happens around the reservation, stealing a car, doing whatever. And he tries to steal a car again, and she said, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "I got drafted, and we're leaving tonight. And I thought if I got arrested, I wouldn't have to go." And she said, "No, it doesn't work that way." And so she says goodbye, and they talk about his grandpa.
Well, why doesn't he just
a code talker?
Why doesn't he just reject the Vietnam draft? Because that's what I would have done.
Well, he couldn't have done that because
Why
he would
not?
have had to go to Canada.
So
That's the way it was. No, they wouldn't do that. His grandpa was a code talker in World War II, and he couldn't disappoint his grandpa.
Well,
and he was worried about his mother and sister. They didn't have anybody to look after him.
Well, I'm sure
and he told her to look after them.
I'm sure that they'll worry about him when he's dead in Vietnam.
Well, maybe he won't be dead in Vietnam.
Yeah, but why would you take the chance? Like, Vietnam War was the most pointless thing in history.
Drafted. Well,
it was a complete waste of time.
Well, I know that. I lived through it, but I'm saying that
all the serial killers came from Vietnam. Like, if you look at all the serial killers, they all have like something where they're like, "Well, I was in the Vietnam War at some point." And it's like, it's really funny because with World War II, there really weren't that many killers who were in World War II, like who came home and became serial killers. But there were a lot of serial killers who came from the Vietnam War.
I don't know about that.
That's pretty bad.
But you can't. We're not going to argue about the Vietnam War in this.
Why?
We're going to talk about.
Well, then why is it in this fucking episode?
Because what they did was, I told Marco this is kind of like a dessert pizza. You have a cookie basic crust.
Or like a shit pizza.
And you have on top of it, you have this layer of like a cream cheese, mixed with sugar. And then you put different fruits on it, and that's a dessert pizza. And that's what this is. Each thing is it's like they just put a fruit. One fruit represented Manuelito, another fruit represented the killer, and just so on. It's just like all the random little storylines all throughout. Nothing was. It was. I was just shocked.
Very disjointed.
It was very disjointed.
It was almost
disappointing.
Yeah, and it was like, what if Dark Winds opened up a TikTok account, and like this whole episode was basically like a series of TikTok videos.
Yeah, it was, and I just can't believe it. They had Jim. Okay, well, I'll go through the outline, but at one point, Jim Chi, he goes undercover to a People of Darkness meeting. And guess who shows up there? Vines and his wife. At first, Vines is there, though his wife is not there at first. And he is supposedly he's the head of this. It's like a cult or a church group or something. They described it as all kinds of different things. And then his wife shows up, and she goes up to him and she says, "Heal me," and everybody goes, "Heal her, heal her." Like, what the heck is going on? And they were just doing that for show. He can't heal her. And I don't think the people knew that they were married. It was just odd.
And then there's this weird thing where, like, their maid was there, and she stole like a bag of money or something, and then
no, it was a bag of something. I don't know.
Jim Chi and her get chased, and it's like,
well, Jim Chi says, "What are you doing here?" And then these men start going after him. These white men, and they're not Navajo, and so he helps her escape, and they're like, and then they don't show any more.
Yeah,
so we don't even know what. I have no idea what that's about. Now, in the book, like I said, all the Navajo got mad at him because they thought he caused that guy, and they talk about this anyway on TV. The one who was killed in the bombing, he had cancer. Remember, he was at the hospital, and they thought that Vines gave him the cancer.
Yes, Safi, like they already talked about that in episode 1.
Right, so they couldn't hire any Navajo, all their Navajo employees. They have a humongous ranch, and they all left. They refused to work for him. So the only Native Americans they had working for them were Pueblo people. And so if that was the maid, she was like supposed to be from a Pueblo Indian.
Really?
Which is, I don't know, it's just, not, that doesn't matter. But I mean, there's all these pieces.
Why'd you just talk
Each
about it?
Each thing is a piece. Okay, well.
It's just random stuff, like the whole episode.
I gotta get a drink.
And there's randomly like an origin story of the killer that's just randomly sprinkled throughout the episode.
Yeah, that was odd too.
It's terrible because it's like they're doing that pretentious Better Call Saul shit where it's all in black and white except for his red hoodie, and I guess he kills his mom.
And that's another thing. The whole series, this season 2, they show him, he's interviewing with some private detective who he has paid to go look for his mother. But then they show this little clip of the past, and it looks like he shot his mother. She had a gun, and she was crying, and he took it from her, and then you hear a shot, and then they don't show anything else.
It was so
That's
strange.
When he was a kid.
I felt like it would have been such a better backstory if she just abandoned him, and then he could never find her. Like, that would be such a more, like, scary and tragic backstory than, like, she killed the family and then he killed her. Like, that's stupid.
We don't know what.
Is that from the book?
I don't think so. I thought she abandoned him, and I'll have the book read by next week, and we can go through the finale.
I feel like that's a feminazi thing too, because I think that
this is way back.
No, the show, because I think that they looked at the book and they didn't want to show a mother abandoning her child because they think that a woman wouldn't do that.
But it happens all the time.
I know.
A lot of people get abandoned by mother and or father.
Well, I think that's what they did, though.
Well,
They're
I don't know.
We can't show a woman abandoning her child.
I don't know. Like I said, it was like, what Marco says is right. It was like, if you want to get, they're like, each thing that happens like a little TikTok video. And it didn't go together. It was very erratic. And let me see, what else? Okay, I'll talk about this eclipse. Okay, I read it. I had no idea about this, and if it's in any
Give me
of
your
the books,
phone. I want to do some research while you're talking about your.
Okay,
your
well,
little
anyway,
research.
We had an eclipse in the United States in 2017, if you recall.
Really?
And the Navajo cannot be outside during an eclipse. To them, the sun and the moon are sacred parts of their culture. And when they have an eclipse, they believe that the sun dies, and then when it's over, it's reborn. And this one, the one in 2017 lasted 4 hours. And they actually would keep their kids home from school, because you're not allowed during an eclipse. You're not allowed to be outside. You're not allowed to take a bath. You're supposed to abstain from eating and drinking. What else? You're not allowed to sleep. You're not allowed to comb your hair. And that's about it. But it's a sacred time. And they're just supposed to meditate and think about things. And so that's what they kept saying that and bringing it up. Don't be out during the eclipse. Don't be out during the eclipse. Sorry.
Are you done with your little?
Okay, so that went through like the first 3/4 of the episode. And then it was over. That's why we were talking about the bad guy when he escapes custody. That would have been good if it happened during the eclipse.
I think they figured that out, like
because they couldn't be, the novel couldn't be out, so they would have to go in, and then that's when he would escape.
I think they figured that out, like at the beginning of our video. They didn't need you to say that.
Whatever.
Let's look at who wrote it, because, like, ew, this is weird. You got, let's see. You got one guy who supposedly wrote it. You got an editor, another writer, and another writer. Well, that's a sign of quality. Let's look at, because I want to see if the person who wrote this, did he write an episode of season 2 that was a good episode? He did. He wrote the second episode of the season, so it's weird that he wrote that really good episode and this really bad episode. Let's see, what else did he write? He wrote 15 episodes of Hell on Wheels. He wrote one episode of that Unabomber show that was really good. So it's weird that, let's see which Hell on Wheels, because talk about, like, other random shit. There was this one really cringeworthy scene while Safi suffers from tuberculosis.
No, I'm not suffering from tuberculosis.
There was this scene where I started going like this. Ah! You know why? Mary Landon came on screen.
Yeah, they had this meeting.
And then it ended.
They had this meeting. I don't know what it was supposed to be about, other than to talk about this maternity act.
Oh,
That's
God.
not the correct name for it, but there was some kind of maternity act passed by Congress. We've already talked about it. And they had this meeting at Emma's house. There's all these women there, and that girl, a young girl who lives there, was there. And Mary Landon shows up with, I think it was another nurse. It looked like one of the nurses, and
it was the most cringeworthy shit.
And
she was like dressed like she thinks she's a white savior or something, and it was just so cringeworthy. It made me want to puke.
She said, "I'm just here to listen."
I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
But she has to say she is a reporter for the L.A. Times.
What the fuck is this?
And like I said in the book, now I just started the book, but when she comes on the scene, like I said, she's a school teacher. She is not a reporter. And Jim Chi has a little fling with her, and then she goes home and never comes back. And he stays there. So, this is, and I don't know what the purpose of this is. Does it tie into the storyline? I just don't see how. But, whatever.
Safi, guess who wrote this episode?
I don't know, Marco.
This explains everything. I'm telling you guys are gonna cringe. This is the guy who wrote Hell on Wheels, Bear Man. I mean, God, that is one of the worst episodes of Hell on Wheels. It is notorious for being one of the worst episodes. Remember that, Safi?
No.
Where Elam, he got hurt by that bear.
Right.
And so then the Native Americans save him, and it's just the whole episode is him going crazy, and then he leaves them or whatever. Like, God, that episode was trash. And he wrote that, and then he was also an accomplice to writing the terrible final season, and he wrote 2 mediocre episodes of that, too.
Wow.
So, that explains everything. See, if I had known that, I would have known this episode's gonna suck Emmanuel Leda. So that explains it, right, Safi?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Okay, well, so this is the whole thing with the episode is Joe Leaphorn is saying, okay, they've got the bad guy now. That's all done. And they think. And he tells the sheriff, who's Sheriff Sana, that, well, why is the guy there? He's not from there. He was sent there to to kill somebody or somebody's, and who hired him. And don't you think it's important to know who hired him? And the sheriff says, no, it's a problem. It's going to go away. We're taking him away. The FBI's taking him. They want him right away. And he said, well, give me a few days to try to figure out what happened and where he's from and what is he doing here. And he said, no, I'll give you 7 hours or something, which is just asinine. That they've had at least 4 or more people killed there, and attempts to kill others.
What I thought
and
was
why
hilarious.
He doesn't want to know why. It's beyond my comprehension.
Well, what I thought was hilarious was the fact that they had this like shitty interrogation scene, and Joe Sleephorn. I was like, is Joe gonna start abusing the prisoner again like he did the last episode? Like, are we gonna have more out of character Fargo season 2 guy here? And that's what he does. He goes over to the bad guy and he
slams his head.
Yeah, he's head slams him, and this is when this is when I cringed even harder, because I realized these fuckers are fucking ripping off The Dark Knight with the whole interrogation scene with that, where he beats on the Joker.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And tries to get information. That it was exactly the same thing. Goes up to him and head slams him. I was like, what the hell? Like, this is bad. It pisses me off. It's terrible. I don't know why people would give this an excuse and say it's good. But then again, people also said Better Call Saul was good. So, yeah.
Well, it was. He'd never do that in the book, ever. And just for that to happen. And I realized that if any of you out there have ever been to this reservation, it's humongous. It's all spread out everywhere, and they probably don't have a big staff, and so they get this bad guy, and here he is killing people. They don't even know his real name. In fact, the whole episode is spent trying to figure out who he really is, and like I said, he has 7 hours or something to figure the whole thing out, which is asinine. Sorry. And so, it would make it if in any modern day, and it's still people get away with it, but if that kind of thing happened in a San Francisco or here or anywhere where they had a prisoner and they abused him like that, and even what he did by dragging him along and hog tying him and having that thing around his neck, that's abuse. He would have gotten in so much trouble.
And then he held the knife to his head and he's like, you don't like Indians? And see, what I was thinking was that he's implying that he's threatening to scalp him, which
I didn't get that at all.
That's why he was holding his hair and he was holding the knife against his forehead, because
oh my God, that is really a cliche.
He was
from the past.
He was threatening to scalp him. I'm like, what the fuck is this? A John Wayne movie?
I didn't even think about that.
Fuck off with that shit.
That's sickening. Because
Mr. Bearman.
I gotta wonder, did that person that Marco's talking about who wrote this episode and those other shitty ones, did he even read any of the books? Because that is not what his character would do at all.
Yeah, it's like, this is supposed to be like a level-headed strategist, like smart, like heroic character, like someone that you would aspire to be, except I wouldn't aspire to be. I don't know, I just feel like that would be a really difficult job that he has at that location too. But this character is not at all like that character. Like, he is still that same Fargo character. The fact that he's gonna scalp the bad guy, that's just not good.
Just shoot him with the shotgun.
No, he was threatening to scalp him. That's what that whole scene was.
In the Fargo one, he was carrying around that shotgun. Well, anyway, so first they bring in when they arrested him, they found his diary, which is not a diary where you talk about your experience. It's like a meeting where he's put down all of his meetings, and so he met with the last private investigator he met with. They found his name, and they brought him in, and they want to know why is he here, or why did he talk to you? And so they find out he's looking for his mother.
And they had this whole cliche sequence where they used him to get a confession from him, and they had this thing where he says he was hired by Mr. DeBeck or something. And then later on, this guy comes and he points out the bad guy is DeBeck. And so I guess they say Joe Sleephorn, he pronounces, like, just out of nowhere that, like, oh, you killed DeBeck and you assumed his identity. And it's like, wow, that was great storytelling. Show not tell. Show not tell. You know, like in the Bear Man episode.
And so his name is LeBeck, and they do give his name. I looked up what his name's supposed to be, and I'm not going to say it because they never did find out. I don't believe in the episode what his real name is.
He looks like he would be like a Camden Kitchen. That's like what his name would be. Remember him, Safi?
No, his first name is Colton. So
that's close though.
Anyway, that's about it, really.
Yeah, like, what else? Well, Safi, you just have to admit, like, that scene with Mary Landon was so cringeworthy. Like, her dressing up in that weird, like, robe thing, and it's like she's trying to be, like, the white savior, and, like, what the hell's going on with that character? Like, why is she there? Why is that a thing? Like, what is the deal with these random storylines taking up the time that should be spent on solving the mystery that they still haven't solved?
Right. And so, like we talked about, Jim Chi went undercover, and then that's a total, like, what is that? And what just happened? And why did it happen? So they haven't even... He had those hours to figure out why the bad guy's there, and he really didn't find out. And They took him away. They were taking him to the FBI, the Sheriff Sena. And he got away, and Sheriff Sena actually gets hurt. And I don't even know what happened.
It all happened off screen.
It all happened off screen.
Very, very good storytelling. You know, like...
He's being facetious.
What's the best, like, scene of all time? Or what's a really good television show scene, Safi?
I don't know. I can't.
God, Safi, you could just come up with something.
Well, I'm thinking of
something easy.
Probably something that some people have.
Let's just.
They've what do you call it? Banned it.
No.
To Kill a Mockingbird. There's some really.
What are you talking about? I said TV scenes, TV show.
Scenes.
No, I got
some ones in Andy Griffith.
I got the perfect one.
What?
So let's contrast two scenes. You could do it with The Dark Knight because they showed all that in The Dark Knight where he escapes and the cell phone's in the guy's stomach and it explodes the police station. Like, that was incredible. But let's just talk about... Well, you haven't seen Jessica Jones, so cover your ears.
No.
Cover your fucking ears.
I don't know if I'll ever see Jessica Jones.
You will. Like, you try to get out of Daredevil, too. You're like, I don't like Daredevil. Wah. It's like, who cares? I don't like Dark Winds, and I'm suffering through it. And and Jessica Jones, there's this whole sequence where the bad guy is in the police station, and, you know, he has the power to control people's minds. And so he literally just controls everyone's minds in the police station, and he just walks out of there. Or, no, I think he makes all the policemen in the entire station shoot themselves, and then he just walks out of there, and he taunts the main character, and it's like, that sequence was incredible. And it's like, if you had this guy write it, you know, the guy who wrote Bear Man from Hell on Wheels, it's like, oh, what would happened? What would have happened? Nothing. It would have all happened off screen. oh no, I'm on the phone and I heard that something bad happened. I'm going to rush to the scene now that we should have seen on screen. That's a good comparison because we knew that was going to happen. We knew that they were going to do that cliche where they have the bad guy and then the bad guy escapes. They did that in Daredevil season 1. They did that in Jessica Jones season 1. They did that in Avengers Endgame. Like, they've done that so many times, that cliche. We have the bad guy. No, we don't. Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. That was a masterpiece. It's too bad that the people who make this show don't get inspired by it in Silence of the Lambs. They're too busy getting inspired by shitty-ass Better Call Saul with selective coloring on the screen. Like, that was the least of their problems this episode. Like, the last thing that they needed to worry about was the color grading on the black and white footage. Like, they should have focused on, like, the story that they're telling instead.
Yes, and I'm going to say something. It would be really nice if the people who made this episode read the books. And if they're just going to do if the episode is based on this one book, it would have been really good if they'd read the book. They don't have to follow every little thing. But come on, really? What they've done, what they did to this episode, I mean, it's just like, it's like a pointillistic painting, although it doesn't make sense.
But pointillist paintings are good.
Pointillism, it's like dots.
Yeah, those paintings are good.
Yeah, they're good, but it's like one that didn't work out. That, there's a famous painter called Seurat, Seurat, I believe, and he's a pointillistic painter, and look his paintings up. They're all painted by using little dots. And he made the most beautiful paintings. If you go to the art museum in Chicago, you can see some of his paintings. And but this thing is just like they had a whole palette of different colored paints. It's kind of like the fruit pizza. And they have this nice canvas, a solid canvas, and they just paint a splotch here of one color, they paint a splotch of another color somewhere else, and by the end it's just a mess. It doesn't mean anything.
And I would say that a big problem is that from the very beginning, Jim Chi has not been the same character, so his whole story this season has been trash. Like, he's not a police officer with them like he is in the book. He's a PI, and it's just been this random story with him. Like, in terms of characters, this season is trash, too. Like, Joe's arc this season has been his becoming not the character from the book, like everyone else, where he's an abusive police person now, which I don't know why they want to make a show with an abusive police person in 2023. And unless he's like the bad guy or an anti-hero, like Dirty Harry. But Dirty Harry was trash too. Well, he was trash. The movies were good. And then Jim Chi, he's not the character. And Emanuelita, she's not the character because she's going to go join the Border Patrol. And I hate it. I hate this episode. I give it a D for dumb. I think that it was a waste of time even talking about this episode because it's like they're doing a disservice to the series too, because they're not going to get new people based off of this season now.
That's what I said too. The fruit pizza thing is like they have a solid base who's read his books, and they've read this one. And they're fans of it no matter what. But I'm going to tell you, the fans aren't going to be very happy, but they're not going to get any new people to like it.
Yeah.
If they screw it up like this. They really aren't. Because it's confusing and unnecessary, some of the stuff. And they have such a limited amount of episodes. This time where they go after fruitless storylines that don't even go with the main story. And instead of telling the story and making that more meaningful and voluminous, they popping up all these little miscellaneous things that don't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help. It's just a distraction. They're distractions. Why would they do that? And there's only one more episode left. So they've got to solve the mystery of that guy who is a killer, a cold-blooded killer who's killed multiple people and tried to kill others and wasn't successful, and he probably would kill more if he could.
Plus,
and they don't want to know and they have to find out who hired him. I think I know who hired him without reading the rest of the book, but I'm going to read the rest of the book. I'll have it done by next week.
And plus, plus, they could make it a short finale like last season. They could rush it even more where it's only 30 minutes. They might do that. You know that they would do that. They did it last season for no reason. They'll do it again this season.
Yeah, I don't know. So, if you want to read a good book, read the book. It's really good.
I think the real
and
question...
You'll be surprised, though.
The real question is, what will be the last straw? Because with Better Call Saul, my last straw was pulled, the whole season, the whole final season, and the season before it at the end. But what would be the final straw for this show? Because we've seen a heroic main character become an abuser, and so he's been degraded now as a person, as a character. We've seen multiple stories get fucked up from the books. We've seen Jim Chi, another main character, not be the character. We've seen Emmanuel Lita become a weird feminist trope where she's like, I want to be stronger than you, so I'm going to go join the Border Patrol. Wah!
And he says, why would you want to do that? You love it here, and it's true.
Yeah, don't you care about the people?
And it's true. In the book, she wants to stay there. They want to live there.
So,
and
Safi,
work there.
What would be the last straw?
I don't know.
Seriously, what last straw can there be at this point, Safi?
There's only one more episode, so...
What's the last straw? If one of them becomes transgender? They're not going to do that.
No.
But, what would be the last straw?
I don't know.
For every show, there has to be a last straw.
I don't know, but
It's a good question.
I hope that I don't know what they can do, though. It's just it was really good, and then for 3 episodes, and then it went straight down the chute. And now we're coming to the last episode. They have this mystery to solve, plus the bad guy's on the loose. They'll have to get the bad guy, and what is it with his mother? What really happened? Who hired him? Why did they hire him to get rid of all these people? And I don't think he was told to get rid of all these people. He got rid of... It's like, if anybody sees him, the little boy saw him, and Jim Chi saw him, so because of that, he had to kill them. So they didn't hire him to kill them. They hired him to kill somebody or a couple of somebodies, which I think it's that father and son that they talk about at the beginning. The guy with the cancer, and then his son who was selling stuff at that I don't know what it was, a jewelry auction or a jewelry sale. And remember, he knew where the box was, and he took him out there, and then he got killed. And so that is who I think he was paid to get rid of. And all these other people, those were, and then the thing with his mother, and they don't even talk about. I really didn't hear, well, because I don't know who he is, but he was in the military. That's how he knows how to make all these bombs. But they don't even talk about that because they don't even know who he is.
They don't want to know.
So, I mean, it's the last episode.
They don't want
They
to
have
know.
a lot to, and this thing with this maternity act, that's not the correct name for it, but it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, it's maybe it's something that did happen and they want it put out there in the episode, but I really, like I said, you've got all these little plots, and they don't even really explain this thing with the thing that happens with the sun.
Yeah.
A solar eclipse. They don't even really explain that.
It's the equivalent. I would say the maternity storyline. It's the equivalent of like, what if you stopped a Batman movie in the middle of the movie so you could have Batman complain about climate change? Like, that's the equivalent. It's like, what does climate change have to do with Batman? Nothing. What is this crap?
Episode that was about climate change. I mean,
Safi, I'm not talking about the corny '60s show that is for kids. I'm talking
like
about.
They had a monster that was created as a result of whatever, too much heat outside. We've had all these extra hot days or the wildfires.
That would be even worse, because that would be like, what the hell is this, Captain Planet?
Yeah, well, whatever.
But it's just
kind of dug themselves into a hole.
Yeah, they did, and they dug them.
Last episode.
They dug themselves there in season 1 too. Like, they did the same thing. They painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah. So, anyway, if you like this commentary, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to become one of our subscribers, and at least add some comments of your own. What did you think? And if you read the book, and my suggestion is please read the book. I just listen to audiobooks. I can do other things while I do that, and it's really nice. I've been listening to audiobooks all summer long, and it just besides all the political stuff, but I like the I like audiobooks. You can do multiple. You can multitask when you listen to an audiobook. That's the good thing about them. So, anyway, next reviews we'll be doing, we're going to review a Slappy World book and also Master Chef, which is coming up on Wednesday night. And Marco says there's going to be another 2 episodes back to back. So, we're going to be doing that. So
yeah, they're trying to rush that to an end too.
Yeah. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.